Welcome to Faith-Filled Investing, the podcast where faith and real estate intersect. Join host Owen Cooper as he interviews real estate investors who are also strong believers in Jesus. Get inspired by their stories and discover how they live out their faith in the workplace. Learn practical tips and strategies for successful real estate investing. Whether you're a seasoned investor or exploring alternative ways to grow your wealth, this podcast will motivate, educate, and connect you with like-minded Christians in the real estate industry. Tune in to Faith-Filled Investing and join the movement of faith-driven real estate investors.
Welcome to Faith-Filled Investing. I'm your host, Owen Cooper. This week we'll be hearing from Marquice Hobbs to learn about his faith journey, his real estate journey, and how those two have intersected. So, Marquice, great to have you here. Even before I hit the record button, we already started talking about life lessons and what we're learning. So I said, man, we got to hit record so people can hear this. So glad that you could join us. I know it's taken us, this has been a few reschedules to get this pulled off. So, and even now, actually, this is probably worth sharing a little bit, but, about to jump in and you had a ministry appointment, unplanned ministry appointment, and you don't have to share the details of it, but just a little bit of, your reflection of that, of what we were talking about before we hit the record button.
Yeah, that's a good question. And thanks again, Owen, for allowing me to be here and just this opportunity to share stories with you and to be on your podcast. Like you said, before I joined, I knew that we had set up the time for it. And I actually had a meeting beforehand, and then after the meeting, one of the people in that meeting kind of said, "Hey, can I talk to you for a second?" And I was like, in about 10 more minutes, I'm going to be on a podcast. But I didn't tell them that. I just said, sure. And as that discussion was unfolding, I realized that as their pastor and as their friend, I needed to give them the space to share what God had put on their heart, and a space to be open and authentic and to not feel the constraints of time. And so that's when I emailed and said, hey, I need another 5 minutes, and that 5 turned to 10. But like we were sharing before the podcast, that reminds me of Jesus oftentimes, specifically when he was on his way to the centurion's house, the woman with the issue of blood intercepted those plans, and she had her need in that moment. And he couldn't say, hey, I have plans, I have other ministry. This is what's here, what God has put in our path. And so I appreciate your grace for that.
Yeah. Amen. Well, that's good. We want to be responsive to God's leading and promptings along the way.
Yeah.
So, Marquice, we actually don't know each other super well. I think we had one conversation. We met in Orlando or wherever we were, Sarasota. So my question is, I'm going to change it a little bit how I typically ask it. What was your first impression when we got introduced from our mutual friend Reggie Collins?
Yeah. Shout out to Reggie. I appreciate that introduction. It was really like one of those things where it's almost as if you're saying, hey, you're in the room too? Oh my goodness. Like, for example, when I'm out in different spaces and I'm traveling, specifically international, if I ever travel international and I meet somebody who's from Texas, I'm like, you're here too? You're in Mexico with me too? It's one of those type of things. And so the reason I share that is because sometimes in the real estate space, you don't meet a lot of folks who start off by saying, I'm a Christian and this is what guides my life. Maybe they're a Christian, but that's more of the therapeutic deity form of Christianity, if you will, right? Which we can have discussions about. But for folks who are really sold out for Christ and are disciples of Christ, it's like when you see us in the marketplace specifically, that's when, for me, a fire is lit up. I'm like, okay, this is my brother in Christ. This is who I need to be connected to. Yeah. Let's exchange information. Let's exchange stories and that sort of thing. And so that's what it was like when Reggie introduced us. Like, hey, there's a Christian here. He's on fire for God, and he has his own podcast. I was like, please, yes, share.
That's so cool. And Reggie, I will continue to give him shout outs because he's connected me with a number of people, and he is also someone, he might be my next guest. I haven't had him on this podcast. He is someone who leads with his faith, And
Yeah.
that's part of how we got connected, because we were on like a Zoom call together, and he shared
Hmm.
in that way. And there's just something about that, like just being able to say, yep, I'm following Christ, and I don't have to just do that in the church walls. And I think that's actually brought a lot of life for me, and I hear the same sort of things from you too. So
Yes.
that's really cool.
Hmm.
So you are currently pastoring a church in Texas, right? On staff there. So you didn't start there. So tell us a little bit about your journey with Jesus, and what's that look like in your life to get you to where you are today.
Yeah, it's a dangerous question because I'm a preacher.
Yeah,
So
right.
you give us an open question, it could take 30, 40 minutes. But I'll try to summarize it. So I grew up in a Christian home, but it was a unique one. It wasn't the traditional mom and dad, white picket fence of the American dream, if you will. My story is that I was actually born out of wedlock.
Wow.
My mom and dad weren't married, and there is variation on the stories between my mom and my dad's side of like how I eventually, about 18 months old, which I just now realized is about the age of my little girl. She's
Oh,
turning
wow.
two next week,
Wow.
and so close to her age, eventually I began to live with my father, but it was more specifically with his mother, so my
Mm,
paternal grandmother.
mm,
And from the time I was 18 months until pretty much freshman year of high school, I was always in her home. And in that home was my dad's sister, and she was the only one of her siblings that graduated high school.
mm.
Excuse me, not high school, college. That graduated
Wow.
college. And so the reason I share that is because my aunt, who raised me, full circle, she's actually raising my daughter now. I just telling all my business out here. This is how blessed God has allowed me to do in full circle.
Oh, wow.
My aunt, who doesn't have any children of her own, I
Mm,
became her child that she raised and
mm,
took care of, and my daughter became her granddaughter.
mm.
And she sacrificed so much for me, even to the point where she lives with us 4 days out of the week to allow me to be a pastor and do real estate, and for my wife to work remote from home as well. And so my daughter doesn't even know how blessed she is. And for those of you who are listening to this podcast, one generation is all it takes to change the family cycle
Mm,
within your family. And so if you think about how I was raised in comparison to my daughter's raised in a two-parent home with
mm.
folks that are married and in love with God, and she has a grandmother in the house as well. So she has it good. But so I told you, preachers along with it. Let me make it short. In that home, my aunt, who graduated from college, reinforced the importance of exposure and education.
Mm,
So I was always exposed and I was always primed for educational experiences. But more importantly, my grandmother was the moral compass of the house and of our
mm.
family.
Yeah.
She was a woman who attended church and loved God like nobody else. And I remember at a young age, it was one of those things where she would tell me, you're going to meet God one way or another. Either you're coming to church with me or I'm going to introduce you myself. The choice is yours. And so since I was a kid, I was always in church. I was
Mm,
one of those young boys that would go up to the older men and say, hey, can you help me tie my tie? Can you help me put on my suit the correct way? And I was always in the environment and exposed to the church and to Christ and to the love of God. And so part of my journey is once I was 15, I went to a summer camp. I went there for the girls, to be honest with you, because the guys who are older than me, they're like, man, there's some beautiful girls here. Let me tell you about last year. And I'm like, what? Me and my friends are saying, we missed out. Okay, mama, I want to go today. I want to go to church camp. This summer, I want to go to church, not sports camp. I'll go to church camp.
yeah.
And so we attended there, and it was not the land flowing of milk and honey that my friends had promised.
Mm,
And so we were like, all right, well, let's adjust. This is church camp. We'll focus on God. And I'll never forget there was an opportunity to lead a devotion in the morning
mm.
for one of the youth to lead that. And my grandmother always raised me not to just attend church, but to serve in church.
Wow.
And so I said, all right, I'm going to sign my name up for here. I'll go give a devotion. Don't know what I'm going to say. And I used a King James Bible. It was a white Bible with gold trimming that had been given to the family during my grandfather's funeral. I
Wow.
preached a sermon and I can't remember to this day, don't know what I said, but it was good enough for the pastors in that environment and for the youth directors to say, there's something special in you that I
Mm.
think God is calling you to do this ministry full time. And
Wow.
so, being a United Methodist, we have a method for everything, and there's a orchestrated, ordained method from the time you accept your calling into ministry to the time where I am today. And so I just continue to follow that plan until I was ordained and appointed to churches and now serving as the contemporary pastor at Christ Church in Sugarland.
Wow. That's really cool. I was just a couple of things you were sharing that kind of paralleled mine. I didn't grow up in a Christian home, um, but my parents and I kind of came to Christ about the same time.
Mm,
And the parallel I was thinking of though was just the difference of that. We talked about the generational impact.
yeah.
Um, my parents both grew up going to church, but by the time that my sister and I came along, like that was not in the picture anymore. They were just kind of
Mm,
living their lives,
yeah.
and because Christ came into our lives, like the change that you see that you described, I was like, oh, that sounds like I'm hearing that. That sounds like the life that I see my kids now, where
Hmm.
actually so my parents, we live in, I'll call it a duplex. They live on the lower level, we live on the upper level.
Yeah.
So my kids are surrounded by their grandkids or other grandparents,
Mm,
live in town and they see them all the time, and just the blessing of that. I
hmm.
really think it's the blessing of God as you walk with him faithfully. You see,
Right.
um, and we say it all the time, but he changes lives, and he
Hmm.
doesn't actually just change a life, but he changes a whole system of lives, right? So
Yes,
a
that's
whole
very true.
family system, and that's really cool to see, and that affirming of your call early on too. I remember there was a guy, he saw something in me, and he flew me out to a conference. It was also through the United Methodist. Flew me out to a conference
Wow.
for people like considering ministry, and I think
Hmm.
you said how old you were, like 15 at the time.
Yeah, I was just thinking, did you go to Exploration? Was it called Exploration?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Did you go there? We could have went to this. Did you go to North Carolina?
I went to the one in Orlando. That's the
Oh,
one I
okay.
went to. So the
That's
summer camp I
crazy.
went to was like youth camp in
Okay.
Palestine, Texas. But
Okay.
Exploration, that is a larger conference that
Yeah,
they put
that's
on for
funny.
those exploring.
That would have been cool if we were like at the same conference. But I remember that was the first time I'd ever flown on a plane. I was about 15.
Okay.
And I just remembered like he saw something in me and
Yeah.
like spoke into that. And so
Hmm.
anyway, just a couple cool parallels about that.
I love it.
So
I love it.
okay, so God's walked in your life. You've been
Yes.
what? How? So it sounds like you went. Did you go right from high school, college, seminary? Did you do that like direct
I
path there?
did. I did. Because as United Methodist, the whole plan is set up for you.
Yeah,
Unlike Baptists, you can, in the Baptist world, you can go get a seminary degree from pretty much anywhere you would like. Baptist affiliated is the preferred. And then you have to apply yourself to the different churches. And more than likely, it's by connection. This church knows you, or this
yeah,
person knows you, right? Within the Methodist system, we're very much so connectional. And so
yeah.
we were guaranteed an appointment. Like in the United Methodist Church, you're guaranteed employment essentially.
Right.
And because of that, it's like, hey, you do this, you go get an undergrad degree, you go to one of these schools for your master's, because we're only going to recognize 55 seminaries, I believe. And then once you graduate seminary, here, even beforehand, here are the committees you have to go before, the psych eval you have to do, the papers you have to write. Then we're going to approve you. Once you graduate seminary, you go through, they used to call it probationary period, but it didn't sound friendly. So it's kind of like the residency period of a doctor.
Yeah,
We go through that period for 2 or 3 years, and then they finally ordain you. So for me, it was like, I don't want to prolong this. Let's go ahead and run through it and get it done.
yeah, yeah. Wow, that's great. I did not follow that path at all. I went all over the place. So, okay, so you have this very track here. So now I'm
Hmm.
wondering, because you're also a real estate investor. So where did
Hmm.
that enter into your life, and what did that look like?
Man, you have all the great questions. And again, it's dangerous because you're asking them of a preacher. Uh, so what happened is, and this is a thing I think pastors can attest to, a lot of us can attest to, is that oftentimes seminary does not prepare you well for running and operating a church.
Mhm.
It'll teach you the theology, it'll teach you the history, it'll teach you maybe the polity, the governance of a church, but it doesn't really teach you about budgets, and sometimes it doesn't even teach you about funerals, right?
Yeah.
And so I came out of seminary and I was super excited. I was on fire for God. And when I got into my local church, again, the bishop appointed me. So I really didn't have a choice of where I went. I just wanted to be in
Right.
Houston, where my family was from. And my wife attended Dallas Theological Seminary at the Houston campus location. So we wanted to be in Houston. And man, when I got out, I was like, yeah, this is super exciting. And I was getting my paychecks and I was doing work and things are well. And then when I would look at our financial statement and I looked at our budget and I saw how the sausage was made with this, I just kind of told myself, uh, this is interesting. We're paying pastors six figures and our children and youth are maybe getting 30, 40,000 combined for their programming, right? Not including reserves or something like that. And what are we giving to our missions and some of those other things?
Mm.
And I noticed that it was always the pastors that were paid the most within the organization.
Mm.
And so at that point, I just decided for myself, I need to find another way to supplement my income so that I can donate more of this back to the local church and continue to make an impact through the church. I looked at single family first, started getting some information about that, was about to dive in. But then my wife and I decided, let's buy our home first because we want to start a family. And so in 21, we bought our first home. God really blessed us with that. That was a time in Houston when prices were crazy. Something would be worth 300. They're listing it for 350. It's bidded up to 400, and they want you to pay the difference, right? I'm like, this is crazy. So we were able to get by God's grace, our home under the list price with a seller's credit under a 3% interest rate.
Wow.
So I was
Wow.
like, let's go, God, let's go.
Yeah.
Um, and so anyway, I bit the single family bug, but then I got exposed to the Kool-Aid of multifamily in 22. And that's when I joined Rod Cleef's program, became a
Mm.
mentee of his. And the caveat to that, though, was my wife told me, we're not going into debt for this. We got a baby on the way. You're a nonprofit. I'm a nonprofit. We can't go into debt. So I entered into the program without a mentor.
Mm.
And I had to network and continue to network and build relationships to get to where I am now with one of my best friends' companies.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I have so much seen the value of having a mentor, but there's
Hmm.
something, and you find mentors along the way, right?
Yeah.
If you value it, you're gonna find it. But there's something to be said about like having to kind of scrap a little bit and kind of create those relationships that aren't necessarily
Yeah.
just handed to you, which is very much the opposite of your pastoral journey, where everything was just kind of lined up for you, right? You had to go
Right.
and scrap it. Yeah. So, tell me a little bit about your kind of your current situation, real estate wise, like the
Hmm.
business you're working with, and
Hmm.
what that kind of looks like for you now.
Yeah. So right now, kind of to end that journey, because I didn't have the mentor and I had to be scrappy, you had to find a way to add value to other people.
Mhm.
Because the truth of the matter is that money always follows value. It's never the opposite. Wherever
Mhm.
there's value, money is going to come to that. And so when I thought about how can I join a team, how can I get a sponsor, I needed to find the deals or I needed to find the money. And the first thing I did was focus on deals because I wanted to make sure that whenever I brought money into it, I knew how to underwrite. I could verify this information myself. And so I started submitting deals to a team here named Massive Capital in Houston with Mike Bailey. He's another warrior. And then as I was networking with him and they were building their company with Shariah and Sanjay, I got connected to another guy. His name was Al Lewis, and he had his own company. He was just his own business, and sometimes he would do business with Massive, and they had a little partnership or friendship going. And Al was the guy that became my mentor. and I was
Mm.
submitting deals with Al. I was underwriting deals with Al. He was the one that taught me how to underwrite. He had 15 years in oil and gas acquisitions, dispositions. He had all these experience, if you will, of mergers
Mm.
and everything else. And so he brought all of that technical experience the uh, into the commercial real estate space, and he shared all of that with me. And so now I'm officially on his team. I'm the acquisitions manager. I'm
Mm.
underwriting. I'm raising capital. I'm building the business. Like we're just a family essentially
Yeah.
on this side of things.
Wow. That's really cool. That's a great, it's not the end of the story, but it's kind of like a
Right.
great kind of conclusion to maybe the end of the chapter. Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah. So that's my
kind
whole
of
life.
how,
That's my whole
yeah.
life.
Yeah. And how it's like set up to you to get to that point.
Hmm.
And we kind of started here, but maybe just glossed over a little bit, because I think some of what led you to real estate was this, and I love that motivation, this passion to actually
Hmm.
see more to missions and generosity, because I think so many times the people who are advertise real estate, they show the fancy cars and the big houses and like, hey,
Right.
you can have these nice vacations, um, but they're like, you're kind of losing the value of generosity, of giving
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
And I've heard, I mean, so many people, even in the program we're in, that even whether they're Christians or not, saying that when they have something that's beyond themselves that they're giving to, that's
Hmm.
actually when those are the successful people, when they're not
Yeah.
just about how much can I acquire and how much can I get.
Yeah.
Whatnot.
I mean, in the book of Ecclesiastes, I think in the third chapter, it says that God placed eternity into the hearts of man. And so there's always something that we're longing for, something more that can't be satisfied by anything in this world. And it's only by God, and it's only in a way by being in service to other people. And one of the first things that I did, not first things, but one of the things I did with my first commission that I got from my deal, I I invested that into an organization here in Houston. I'm looking for the business card. It's called Revision,
Hmm.
Revision Houston, and their goal is specifically to help juveniles that have been incarcerated,
Hmm.
and they provide programs for them while they're there incarcerated and even afterwards. And they showed one of the youth who went on to be in big boy prison, as I would call it. He got out, he got connected again with Revision, got a job. There was some restoration in that story. And he presented at a gala that I was able to attend on behalf of my church, which I,
Hmm.
in that gala could donate because of the business. And so
Hmm.
that's ultimately like where I want to be, is the philanthropic side. It's like, yeah, it's great to
Hmm.
make money. Yeah, it'd be great to have the cars or whatever, but that stuff doesn't motivate me.
Yeah.
It's changing lives. It's impacting the kids that I mentor every week at the juvenile facility in Fort Bend County myself,
Hmm.
where I'm able to say, all right, let's walk through this weekly. And then now that you're out, can I get you a job, or can I do something else for you? Or it's that kind of impact.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's really good. And what you're saying makes me think of, our heart. Jesus talks a lot about what's going on in our heart is what comes out of us. And
Hmm.
you talk about our what we say, but also just our lives in general.
Hmm.
And a lot of times, I think about money. Actually, well, it could change our heart. It could make it more corrupt, but it actually ultimately is like a magnifying glass. So if you have
Yep.
selfishness in your heart, it's just gonna make it look bigger. And if you have
Hmm.
generosity in your heart, it's gonna make it look bigger.
Oh yeah.
If you value family in your heart, that money is gonna allow you to do more things with your family. So
Yeah.
it's really, I think it's more, well, magnifying glass or mirror more
Hmm.
than a change agent in that sense.
That's very true. One of my mentors, he says, all money does is amplify. It
Yeah.
just amplifies. And that's why it's so important for a person to have financial literacy, because if you don't know how to manage $1,000 budget, you won't know how to manage a $10,000 budget, and so on and so forth. And so
Yeah.
all it does is it amplifies the problems and amplifies the values. It's an amplifier for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Which is a good argument for when you're raising your children, to make sure that they, get the principle of tithing, giving God the first fruits right away, and of
Yeah.
being generous and of saving when they have, $10 for birthday money, and
Oh
actually
yeah.
doing it then, because then when they get a job, my daughter just gave me 2 checks, total $150, right? So now
Nice.
you got the job,
Nice.
and now you're already used to doing it, and then you go get your first full-time job, and
Yeah.
you're making tens and twenties of thousands of dollars, and all of a sudden it's like already built into you. It's really
Hmm.
really important. So I know
Yeah.
there's always little hacks along the way every episode. I think that's one of them for this one for sure. So I'm curious now, in your real estate life, and
Sure.
I actually, the whole point of this podcast is to not separate them. So, but I'm just talking about like the part of your, when you're doing real estate things. How have
Hmm.
you seen your Christ-centered values come out in what you do in real estate?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Again, man, you got good questions here. Um, so the way that it comes out is I found it most often in the way that you treat people. Because
Mm,
specifically on the capital raising side, and you probably experience this yourself with operators or other folks, it can feel very transactional, very
mhm.
much so like, hey, we have a deal. Here's everything sweet about the deal. Are you going to invest? Hey, I haven't heard back from you. What are you going to do? we we make it our aim to not be transactional but to be transformational. Let's build a
Mm,
relationship with the people. Let's hop on calls. Let's answer any questions that you have. And then even when I'm engaging with brokers, on the acquisition side of things, man, how is it with your family? Like how's life treating you? I care
yeah.
about you. What are some of your goals you have? Can I assist you in those goals? That sort of thing.
Mhm.
And so I think it's for me, it's the way that being a Christian and my values impact what I do in the real estate is that I actually care about the people that I do business with.
Yeah.
That's what it is all about for me at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. Transformational, not transactional.
Yeah.
It's a good
Oh
phrase.
yeah.
So this is a question that everybody loves to hear the answer to, and people don't
Okay.
like to talk about.
Let's go.
What sort of challenges have you had to overcome in real estate?
Yeah. I think challenges for me were there were some very real practical ones. One is that working in nonprofit, you don't make as much as doctors and lawyers and business execs, right? So my business partner, he started off as a oil and gas guy. There's money in that. The other two partners in the company, one's a neurologist that owns a sleep clinic. The other is a pharmacist who used to manage Walmart pharmacies and now runs his own. So you're in the field talking to these kind of people, and you're like, man, you have money. You this is a hobby for you type stuff, right? And I'm just the guy that's a nonprofit trying to make a profit to impact the nonprofit. Talk about
Yeah,
a wordplay.
yeah, right.
And so there was a challenge of capital of okay, where can I find the capital? How can I invest the capital? That sort of thing myself. But then you realize like you don't have to do it all yourself. And if you can find a team to
Mm,
add value to, then the capital itself will come and it will resolve. And one of the things on this note that we stand by with our team is we're never going to ask people to invest into a deal if we don't invest into it as well, right?
yeah.
Because it's not transactional, it's transformational. If you're losing, we're losing. If you're winning, we're winning. So I think it was the capital piece, but then also the limiting beliefs. Like a lot
Mm,
of us have so many limiting
mm.
beliefs. This isn't the right time. I don't have time. I don't have the skills. What am I doing in the room? I'm the pastor. Can I do faith and finance?
Mm,
How can I raise money? It was so many different limiting beliefs, and when you start to have faith and you start to believe and you allow God to lead you, I mean, where I am today is all because of God. He led me to the right conversations. He led me to the right
mm.
people. He led me to you in Sarasota. And so my challenges were the capital, a little bit of the imposter syndrome, and limiting beliefs for sure.
Hi, Owen Cooper here with Rock Solid Investments. Sorry to interrupt this amazing conversation that's going on, but I did want to mention that if you are interested in investing with my company, or even just curious about it, please go to my website, rocksolidinvestments.com, ROC solidinvestments.com. You can sign up for newsletters. You can book a time to talk with me, and we can talk more about what that investing journey would look like for you. So glad you're part of this podcast. And now let's get back to the conversation.
So I want to just dig into that a little bit, specifically about limiting beliefs, because it's so big, and everybody I've ever met has to struggle with that.
Yeah.
And so how specifically has your faith spoken into those limiting beliefs, and maybe even just pick 2 or 3 specific ones, and how your faith in the Lord has made a difference in that?
Yeah, I'll tell you, most recently, God has really been working on me with this one. And the limiting belief that I have that God is kind of massaging out of me currently is that I have to do it all myself, right? And that my family's future is all on me. In a way, that's a good belief to have because it motivates you, especially as an entrepreneur, but it limits you because you're looking at it from a very um, limited space, if you will, and you're thinking it's all you, it's all your efforts, and if you don't do, then it won't happen. Um, and in addition to that, you also have the time component on it. So anytime you add time to any of your goals or resources, you kind of in a way limit them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so with that in mind, what God has recently been reminding me of in my devotional time with Him, Job, I think 26, talks about how wisdom and understanding come from the Lord.
Mm.
You can't find that in nature. Like if you wanted to go find water, you can go to the river. If you want to find iron, you can go to the mountains and dig in the coal mines, right? If you want to find gold, you can shift through California soil and hopefully find some. But wisdom and understanding can only be found in the Lord, says Job.
Mm. Wow.
And in addition to that, in First Samuel, it talks about how God provides the prosperity, the abundance. So the answers and the things that I'm working for are not me. That's a limiting belief to think that I'm having to do it, but it's a more refreshing and unlimited belief when I can just say my faith proves and shows that it's God who's going to give me abundance. It's God who's going to give me the
Mm.
wisdom. It's God who's going to take care of all of these things. I just have to be the steward of it.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's really good. And I think, again, words that I need to hear. Maybe this podcast is just for me, but I think other people, as they listen to it too, need to be reminded of those truths. So I think, as God's working on you in those ways, it's not just for you. I think your ability to share that with us now is actually really, really helpful. So thanks
Yeah.
for
And
doing that.
if I could, one other one too, because
Yeah.
again, preachers we're always preaching. One of the biggest ones that people will see is time, because I'm a W-2 employee. I'm 40 hours, give or take, week in and week out here, and having to craft sermons every week, which is not just a science, but it's an art. So there's creativity involved. I'm a father. I'm involved in multiple nonprofits that I'm active in. And it's not to toot my own horn, but it's to say I love doing these things.
Yeah.
And so trying to fit real estate into all of that and keep it all in balance, the limiting belief that comes is I don't have enough time. Like, man, I don't have enough time to make it all happen. I don't have enough time to be a loving father, a loving husband, a present father, an effective preacher, a caring shepherd of God's people, all these other things. But when you tell yourself the opposite of that, which is that I have the same 24 hours that someone else does, and I have the same time that God gives me, He gives to someone else, you start to look at, instead of what you limit, how can I shift and change things, right? And so I've had to wake up at 4:30 in the morning sometimes and go to sleep at 11 sometimes. I've had to choose what's valuable to me. Maybe in this season, family is most important, and this other nonprofit may have to hang back a little bit. And
Mm.
so when you realize, when you choose what your values are and what your priorities are, and you remember that God gives you the time, you don't have to be limited by time. You'll find the time if it's important to you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's making time or finding time. Yeah, this was somewhat related. There was a guy who was really challenging. I was with it in a training program with mostly
Hmm.
young adults, and it's really challenging them to have quiet time with the Lord in the morning. To get up early in the morning, spend an hour with the Lord. And most young people, most people in general, but especially young people, are not morning people. Don't want to get up.
Yeah.
And he said something that just really stuck me. Even a
Hmm.
sense of, well, you just wake up, splash some water on your face, like whether you got a full night's sleep or a half night's sleep, you just get up and you start the day. And
Hmm.
like once you do that, you just start going.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I think we often are just making excuses, like I'm too tired, like you said, I don't have the time for that, or I didn't get enough sleep, or
Hmm.
whatever. But and that was specifically about spending time with the Lord, which I think is, if you do that, then the rest of your day is just going to go better. But the
Yes.
principle still applies to everything in life. Like, yeah, you just got to
Yeah.
start, because it's not going to be perfect.
That's true. Rod Cleef gave, I don't know if he gave, if you received this from him, but at one point he gave all of his students a book called The Miracle Morning. Have you heard of
Oh, I
that?
didn't get that one. I got a couple others, but
Oh, man. That one is a great one. I forget what the acronym stands for, but it's a SAVOR acronym. And essentially, what the author did was to evaluate the lifestyle of some of the most affluent and successful people, and to figure out what was the key for success for you. What are some continuities that you all share in these different industries? And what he found is that most of them, if not all, had a morning routine. They
hmm.
all woke up in the morning. There was some form of silence. They had some affirmation. Maybe they did some vision casting, some reading, some physical activity or something like that. And so he kind of put together this 30-minute to an hour program to start your day off, to jumpstart it. And he gives you some tools to wake yourself up, include throwing water on yourself or just brushing your teeth. Because everybody knows once you brush your teeth, I'm not going back to sleep. I don't want
That's
minty
true.
breath
Yeah,
when I'm sleeping.
yeah.
I'm too fresh. I'm too fresh.
That's good. Yeah, I think about that. So these principles, because I don't even know who wrote that, but they're not necessarily people who, they don't necessarily have faith in the Lord. It
Hmm.
might, like you said, it might be kind of a general faith, but the truth is, God has built us in this way
Sure.
for us. For we work in this way, and it's
Mm.
actually designed for us to spend time with Him and to give Him the glory.
Yeah.
The reality is that the principles still work, and that's I think I've been sometimes I hear people, they're kind of like, oh, that evil awful business world, and then then you got the church world where everybody loves
Hmm.
each other, and it's like sometimes I see more like Christian behavior and lifestyle in the business world than I do
Yeah.
in the church world.
Oh,
and
oh,
and
ouch. Gotta preach.
yeah, no, not your church, and certainly not mine, of course, but
Right, right, right,
other,
right.
and so it's just that sense of like, if you follow God's plan, even if you
Hmm.
don't know it's God's plan, it works better,
Hmm.
right? That's the
Hmm.
wisdom and knowledge that comes from the Lord. And so sometimes people don't even recognize the source, like it's God designed us to work that way, and they might misuse it or be misdirected,
Hmm.
but it still works because God built it that way to work.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just fascinating.
God called us to be a lot, not to build a bonfire. And what I
Hmm.
mean by that is when you take a light into the world, even if it's a flashlight or maybe a torch, which is more common practice in the Old Testament and the New Testament times, that light had a very limited influence and impact. It would only light up things that were close to it, right?
Hmm.
It would only light up things that were in close proximity to it. One of my professors, Dr. Gregory Ellison, he would say, if you want to change the world, start with the 3 feet that are around you, just the 3 feet. That um, IKEA ruler that they give you, that 3 feet. And so the business world, I think, is very primed for a
Yeah.
transformation and for the sharing of the light, because when you get to share the love of God and you show people that I'm not just transactional, I'm transformational, I care about you, I care about your story, and you walk and talk different, right? Your paycheck doesn't go straight towards all the toys, it goes towards all the
Hmm.
children or different things of that nature.
Yeah.
It creates a cognitive dissonance, and it creates a disruption in people's day to day. And they want to know,
Hmm.
why is it that you do this? There's a curiosity about it. And so, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. I love it. I'm loving this conversation. It's so good. Um, okay, so there's, I'm wondering if there's I know there is, but if you can think of it, like a
Mhm.
specific incident, kind of more recently, where sometimes I use a term like a God sighting, where you've seen God kind of show up. And if it's in your real estate life, that'd be cool. Where there's just a sense of, you're on this trajectory and God shows up. It could be maybe it's a conversation or a certain specific deal or something like that. Does something come to mind for that?
There's so many. I'm trying to think about one specific one where I was like, God, that wasn't nothing but you. I'll give you a simple one, very, very simple. It may not have an impact on a lot of folks out there, but it meant a lot to me. Um, there's a second one that actually came to mind as I said that. But just yesterday, I was traveling in the airport and I didn't know which of the terminals I needed to be at because I was being cheap. I selected the flight that left the latest because it was the cheapest, right? And so I had 5 hours at the airport. Okay, God, I'm being a good steward of my finances here. And so, it because of that, on my boarding pass, my mobile boarding pass, it didn't have what gate it was going to be out of. It didn't have what terminal to be out of. It was just like, all right, it's going to either be A through D, whichever one it is. I'm going to have to get on a tram and get there. And so I said, God, which one is this going to be on? I've been to this airport before. I know kind of where Delta, that's where I was flying, kind of departs from. And I felt like the Holy Spirit had told me B. I was like, okay, I'm on B right now. My Chinese is on C, but I'll get off on B because that's my little thing. I always eat Chinese food in the airport. I don't know why, but the mall and the airport, I'm going straight to that. And so, Panda Express, baby, here I come. And lo and behold, I looked at the screen and my flight was not up there because it's 5 hours. They're like, we're not going to give you a gate, you know.
Oh, right.
Uh, but eventually, when it came up, I was like, thank you, God. You told me B. I felt like you said B at least, and then here I was at B. And then another time, another guy sighting I saw. I was at a spiritual retreat last weekend. They had multiple speakers, and I came in to present a talk. It's called the Walk to Emmaus, and while I was there, there was one of the volunteers. She said, I don't know if you remember this at all, but one day you called my husband and you told him the Holy Spirit told you to call him. And so you're just following up to see how he's doing today.
Mm.
She said, I don't know the impact that you had, but that day he had the roughest day he had in a while. And for
Mm.
you to call him in that moment was a reminder that God's love and presence is still in his life. I
Wow.
was like, that's nothing but God. That is nothing but God.
Yeah,
So probably those two will be God's
that's so
sightings.
cool. Yeah, I love it. Well, good. I'm glad I asked that one. All right, so there's always people. You might have been them at one point who are kind of listening to podcasts, considering real estate. It's kind of a big scary monster until you dive into it. So, for those people, if they're considering investing in real estate but they haven't started yet, what would you say to them?
Oh, and they're considering, but they haven't started out yet. I think I would ask them, determine what your why is.
Hmm.
Why do you want to do commercial real estate? Because you can go into tech, you can go into startups, you can get into Etsy, single family, stocks, crypto. There's so many other avenues of creating wealth and income. So you have to ask yourself, why commercial real estate? And what is this going to do for you, essentially? Because you need to have that motivation. Like for me, it was to supplement the income, and then it became to actually retire my mom. Because every time I
Hmm.
go to Hobby Airport in Houston, there are apartment complexes that I pass by that I keep telling myself one day I want to purchase and put her name on it because she lived
Hmm.
there before going to the army,
Hmm.
and so those are like my whys, and that why will motivate you through the challenges and the obstacles because
Yeah.
you will think about that for yourself. And then the second thing, which my mentor told me yesterday. He was like, "This is actually the way to salvation." I was like,
Hmm.
"Huh, I never thought about that in this way," because it was a business statement.
Cool.
Oftentimes, it's not what you know, but it's who you know.
Hmm.
And so, after you have that determination of what your why is, why commercial real estate, and why do you want to invest or do anything like this, find the person who is doing it that's closest to you, or someone in the network to get connected with. And the person that you get connected with ought to be like a Mary and Elizabeth story, where something within you jumps because of what's in
Hmm.
that person. And
Hmm.
maybe it's the Holy Spirit. Maybe it's like the spirit within me leaps because of the child that's in you, if you will. And so that's what I would say. Find your
Hmm.
whys, and then find the who, and then you will discover the how and the what later.
Wow, that's really good. I do feel like that um, that it's very. I'm going to say the temptation is to want to answer the how and the what. How do I do
Hmm.
this? What do I do? What are the steps? Right. But yeah, the why and the who are really important places to
Yes, sir.
start. That's
Yep.
good. Again, more nuggets. Man, I should charge for these podcasts. There's so much good stuff in here. But it's free, everybody, so
Yeah,
you can
it's
listen for
grace.
free.
It's
That's
grace.
right,
Yeah.
God's grace. That's right. So, you're in this journey. You have this visions of getting these apartment buildings, get your mom's name on it.
Hmm.
Being super generous. I think you're still on the road to that. So, even
Hmm.
up to this point, what difference have you seen real estate make in your life?
Yeah, it's the biggest thing. One of the biggest things I would say is probably faith.
Mm,
So part of my journey is when I started in 22, I didn't get my first deal until summer of this year, basically. So that's a
wow.
year and a half of
Yeah.
underwriting, of networking, education, showing up to places in the midst of my 2 year old now, right? Who had to be a father, had to adjust to that. I mean, the first year my wife and I just concluded we were surviving. I don't know what our finances looked like. I don't know what our health looked like, but as long as we were alive and the baby was alive, that was a success for us. Um, and so, what today, because of that first deal, and because we're actively raising, and we have others in the pipeline, um, it has a sense of faith. Like, wow, this can be done. This abstract, this thing that I've been working on, it's here, and it's going to make me this much money and this much amount of time. And not only that, but one of my first investors was actually a guy from my father-in-law's church
Mm,
who is a real big volunteer and has a heart for God and heart for people. And so my first volunteer, I'm helping his family with their retirement, and I'm helping him create generational wealth, and I'm helping him to pour more seeds into the kingdom of God.
mm,
And I feel like that little glimpse here lets me know on a grander scale as we continue to build the portfolio, or at least my portfolio, it's going to be more investors like that. It's going to be more families like that, and I can see it now. I can taste and see it,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I think it has that.
Wow, that's beautiful. So you've maybe I don't know what your sort of diversity is in investing, but do you have a favorite investing strategy or asset class thing that you maybe enjoy doing more than other? Every part of a business, there's things we enjoy and don't enjoy. What are the parts that you enjoy?
It's a good question. Again, you're full of good questions. I can tell you've done this a couple times. I would say when you're first getting into it, you have to have one particular focus, one focus. If you take the same amount of water that's in the bathtub, stay with me here, right? Water in the bathtub, there's no effect there. It's calm, it cleanses you, whatever. But if you take that same amount of water and you put it in a water hose and you
Mm,
pressurize that thing, now because it's so concentrated, it has an impact. And I think that's how it is with our focus. When we become more focused on a thing, we're able to impact and go further, go a
mm,
greater distance. And for those who are starting off, I would find the asset class that you want to master in underwriting or learning or finding the who that is in that, whether that's someone in the light industrial space, the flex space, the hotel space, gosh, the apartment, land development, whatever. Um, for me, it started with the apartment complex, 22 to 24. In 23, it slowed down by 70% here in Houston with the transactions. So everything just
Yeah.
slowed. And so my team, when I joined my team, we started getting into land development. We're like, okay, well, apartments are slowing down. We still have investors and we still have this vision. Let's pivot. What else is working out there? Where is there a supply shortage, but an increase in demand? And so to answer that question right now, we're enjoying land development. I love,
Hmm.
love, 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 love land development
Hmm.
because there are so many different things that you can do with it. First of all, you can't reproduce land. It just is what it
Right.
is,
Right.
right? And if you get a piece of land, there are so many different exit strategies. You can buy it and hold on to it for years. You can buy it. You can wholesale it. You can buy it and do the horizontal development and then sell it. You can build something with plans for something else and sell it. There's 8 or 10 different exit strategies for that.
Yeah. Interesting.
And so what we're building now are light industrial warehouses,
Hmm.
small business parks. We are building apartment complexes. We're building senior facilities. We're building a lot of different things on the development side, while still looking at apartment complexes, right? Because that's
Hmm.
the bread and butter. But land development is what's enticing in this season.
Yeah. Wow. Fascinating. And is that all around you, or are you looking kind of nationwide?
It's a good question. Our strategy is to look where we have trusted boots on the ground. So
Hmm.
we're here in Houston, but we have, I call him Uncle Wes. It's my business partner's uncle because they're a family business essentially. He came
Yeah.
out of retirement, 15 years of development, built all the IHOPs in Oklahoma
Wow.
and a couple small apartments. So he was good with retirement. But my business partner Al got him out, and so he's boots on the ground in Oklahoma City. So we're in Oklahoma City, and then we're in Houston, and we'll consider Dallas because it's a part of Texas too. All of that is
Okay.
Texas. Oklahoma City is Texas. Dallas is Texas. Houston. Yeah.
Like Texas isn't big enough, you have to increase it even
Yeah, yeah.
bigger.
There we go.
Yeah.
It's the
Right.
fifth largest city in Texas. We'll say that. Oklahoma City is.
Yeah.
I'm
That's
gonna get in
funny.
trouble one day for that, but
Yeah.
until
Yeah.
then.
Well, not by me. I mean, Wisconsin, we don't have a dog in the fight, so it's fine. We don't have anything big here. So, um, yeah. So, okay, we've talked a lot about Jesus and real estate, probably two of my favorite topics. But just other things in your life, just something that's maybe exciting or interesting that you've been involved in lately in a different area.
Mm, Man, one thing that really touched my heart. Um, I volunteer, excuse me, at the Juvenile Detention Center here in Fort Bend County.
Yeah.
I like to do more of the one-on-one than the group because I feel like you can create a relationship again, transformative. You can go deeper. I've been mentoring this kid for about 6 months now, and the facility they're in is a holding facility. It's either holding until the case is adjudicated, or it's a transitional place until they go into the permanent youth facility or adult facility. I was mentoring a kid for 6 months. I was really working with him because of the mindset thing and the limiting beliefs that he
Yeah.
had.
Yeah.
And I could see the change, and the guards could see the change by God's grace
Mm.
that God was really doing. And I'm happy to say, man, that he has been released and is back with his parents.
Oh,
And
great.
I should be connecting with him hopefully sometime in November to visit and to see him in the free world and to continue that
Mm.
relationship.
That's awesome. That's so
Yeah.
cool. I love it. I love what you're doing, Marquise. This has been so good. Thanks again for taking the time to do it. I trust this will not be our last conversation.
Oh, yeah.
But
Oh,
I've just been so encouraged by the things that you shared. Like I said, I know this podcast has been for me. I trust it'll be
yeah.
a blessing to other people as well too. So just thank you for your time today.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for the work that you're doing for the kingdom and your voice and story. I know that it's impacting lives. And so I just appreciate your faithfulness to that.
Thanks for joining us with another episode of Faith Filled Investing.